Hey guys, welcome back to my Nintendo Arcade. Today I want to share with you my Radarscope PCBs and kit, which I managed to find a couple of years ago. I've never really wanted the actual game because it's not a favourite of mine, to be honest with you, but it's quite a significant game in Nintendo's history because it's where Nintendo started to turn things around. Because it was such a big flop in America, Nintendo were forced to turn it around, otherwise I think they would have risked being bankrupt quite in a big way. So the story behind Radarscope is it came out in Japan in about 1980, and I think it was the same team that was behind a lot of the other earlier games. I think Shigeru Miyamoto started to come on board about this time, so I think he had something to do with designing this game as well. And it was quite a big success in Japan, second to actually games like Pac-Man and stuff like that. Yeah, it was quite a big success. So Nintendo thought they'd take their chances and try and release it in America. So they shipped literally about 3,000 machines out to America. And some of those machines were cockpits. Huge, great big machines that you sat down and played this game. I've never seen any over here in the UK or any in Europe. They also released a cocktail, white cocktail, which probably would have been quite common in Japan. Very similar to my space launcher here. And they released an upright cabinet like this. But it had slightly different shape to it here, slightly different curves. But essentially the same size cabinet. But by the time they got all these machines over to America, technology and games had moved on quite a lot. I mean, 6 months a year is quite a lot in gaming terms, in technology. Kids get bored of games very quickly as well. And Radarscope was very similar to Space Invaders and Galaxians. And Space Invaders had already been around like 3 years already. And there wasn't a lot of difference. Okay, it looked a bit, your perspective in the game looked a bit kind of futuristic, a bit like Juno First, you know, it's got that kind of 3D effect going on. But other than that, it's pretty much a straight shooter, where, you know, you've just got 3 bullets on the screen at one time. A bit like Space Firebird actually. It plays a little bit like Space Firebird, but nowhere near as good. So what they did with the 3,000 cabinets, well, they got Miyamoto. This is where Miyamoto literally came into stardom. He designed Donkey Kong, and at the time I think he was trying to design Popeye, but he didn't actually get the license for Popeye. He managed to get that 2 years later, which is what we see here, Popeye. But so Popeye could have been in a Donkey Kong world, but he didn't get the license. So what they did with Donkey Kong is they sent a load of kits over to America. I think they sent 2,000 kits, and they converted 2,000 of the Radarscopes into Donkey Kongs. And if you've got a red Donkey Kong in a red cabinet, basically that means it used to be a Radarscope, which makes the red Donkey Kongs even rarer than the normal blue ones, which is what I've got here. And the other 1,000 odd Radarscopes, well, they either went into collectors' hands or got smashed up, basically, I guess. And I guess that's where my kit comes in, because mine would have been in one of those 1,000 odd games that were still laying around. So I'll show you the bezel here. This is the Bezel Radarscope. Okay, and it's the same as Hellfire. Hellfire is a very similar game, came out at the same sort of time, and it's basically the same bezel as this, but a different colour. You can see that's, I suppose it's supposed to be quite futuristic. It's supposed to look like a cockpit of a spaceship, I guess. And that fits basically straight in there, straight into my cabinet. So if I wanted to, I could swap Donkey Kong to Radarscope. So that's the bezel. Now I'm going to show you the control panel, which is really cool. Here's the control panel. Again, lots of things going on the control panel. Quite cool. I mean, these buttons, I don't think that's an original Nintendo button, because Sheriff and my other cabs have got, I can't show you now, but they've got a different type of button. That just looks like off a fruit machine or something. But the rest is all original. This is an original joystick, left-right joystick. If you look on the back, it's the same mechanism that I have in all my cocktail machines. Same for Space Fever, Space Launcher, and Space Firebird has the same joystick, left-right joystick mechanism. And these buttons here, I don't think they're original either. I'll have to show you. I don't think I've got any with me right here now. Let's have a look in this box. Yeah, here we are. These are original Nintendo buttons for the early games. So you'd find this on Player 1, Player 2, and your fire buttons were slightly bigger than that actually, but that would slot in there. So I could swap them around quite easily. I've got a few spares of those upstairs. So there you go, guys. That's an original Radarscope control panel. It's pretty rare, very rare. I mean, you don't see many of them lying about. It's got a bit of smoke damage here, but you know, you could quite easily put that on there and it'd look quite cool. So that's the control panel. Now I'm going to show you the PCB. Now I've got 3 PCBs. I've got 2 original Radarscope, they're 4-layer boards, and I've got a Donkey Kong Jr. 4-layer Radarscope board, which is uber rare. I'll show you that one first. So, in these 2 boxes here, I can't even remember where I got this from, but this is a 4-layer Radarscope board, but it's been hacked and converted into a Donkey Kong Jr. So if you've got a cocktail, most of the cocktail PCBs would have been 4-layer, so they can fit inside the cocktail because it's a lot smaller. So they made these 4-layer boards, so that would have fitted nicely. That's why they converted to a Donkey Kong Jr. So that would fit inside a cocktail, I would imagine. But this is a Radarscope board. It's got TR, you can see that there, TRS. That is a typical Radarscope signature there, and the same on the other side. But it's been hacked to a Donkey Kong Jr. There's no actual markings for that. But yeah, so when I plug that in, basically, it comes on as Donkey Kong Jr. and it's a Japanese version as well, which is even weirder. Which the levels are all around. When you play Donkey Kong Jr., the American version, I can't remember how it works now, but they work it slightly different. The Japanese version, you play them in order, 1 to 4, whereas the American version, you play level 1, then you play the chains, and you go back to level 1 again. Whereas the Japanese version, you go through all 4 levels, which is really unusual. I don't know why they've hacked this board, I really don't. But it just shows you that the original Radarscope hardware, it was quite versatile. I mean, you could use it, they used it on Donkey Kong as well, because they converted a lot of Radarscope boards into Donkey Kong. Because you can hear the sounds when you're playing Radarscope. It sounds like Donkey Kong jumping. It's the same hardware. I mean, I'm no real big tech head, but I know I can hear the differences when you plug them in. Someone who's good at knowing their PCBs will probably go into a little more depth. This is another original Radarscope PCB. Again, it's got 4 layers, you can see there. So that's how you tell. So if I put that on a machine that came on as a Donkey Kong, you know that's an early Radarscope PCB because it's got 4 layers. There is, I found out early last year, there is another Radarscope board that has 5 layers. And the 5th layer is a speech board. It operates all the speech. So that some of the early Radarscope boards had speech, which is really, really unusual. I didn't even know that. There is a site, I can't remember which site it is on, where they found the actual speech board. on here, which is absolutely incredible. In fact, I do know someone that's got one, which I wouldn't mind having actually. So yeah, there you go guys, that's a radar. Both of these boards don't work, by the way. I need to get them fixed, and it costs a lot of money to get them fixed. I haven't got round to it yet. So that's Radarscope. I've also got a nice little Radarscope flyer here. This would have been an American one. I'll show you the Japanese version. As you can see, it's a lot different. But see, that's the cocktail one. That's what we've got in Europe, which is pretty cool. So yeah, I mean, it's okay, Radarscope. I mean, it's a nice bit of history. And it's nice to have in my arcade, you know. But it's not. I don't think if the cab came up, I probably. Well, I'm out of room now anyway. But if the cab did came up, I don't think I'd probably buy it, because it's just not on my list of the best Nintendo games out there, really. The next game I want is Sky Skipper. So if you ever see a Sky Skipper, that's the game I'm looking for. That's my next Grail cab if I ever find one. There's no pictures or anything of a Sky Skipper on the internet, so it would be really cool to see one. Anyway, so what I'm going to do now is show you a bit of the gameplay, see what you think of Radarscope, and we're going to play it on my Bartop that my good friend Victor made me, and see what you think of the gameplay. Alright, see you in a bit. So here we are. This is my Bartop, which is running MAME, which my good friend Victor Marland made me about a year or two ago now, must be. And he did a lot of work here. He did an amazing job. There's so much attention to detail here. You know, what with the Versus control panel, and I think he's used real Versus Nintendo joysticks there. So it really does feel like you're playing a proper Nintendo Versus cab. And then you can see he's done the artwork on the side. He's trying to get the red Donkey Kong or Radarscope red cab going on there with the paintwork. The marquee all lights up. There is a light behind there, but I've turned that off because you wouldn't be able to see it otherwise on the film. So I'll turn that off just to show you that. And then you can see it's got like a Dr. Mario theme going on, and all the games are in the kind of bottle, which is really cool. And you can switch between vertical, Neo Geo and horizontal games. I've got no Nintendo games on there because I've got all that down the games room. This is purely for me arcade stuff, really. So today I'm going to show you Radarscope. Okay, so let's plonk you down there. Hope you can see. And let's select Radarscope. And here we are. So this is 1980 or 7980, I reckon, this game. And they've taken a lot from sort of Space Invaders and Galaxians, and it's kind of a bit of a poor mishmash, I think. It's an original game by Nintendo, but they've taken a lot from those two games. But this is quite unique, this grid system, which kind of gives it a kind of a 3D effect, I guess. And when you crash, it kind of warps. When we play it, you'll see it. The whole middle section will warp, and gives it kind of a weird feeling. The sound effects are not all that. The gameplay is a bit slow, a bit boring. The enemies kind of don't really do much. There's not much variation in them either, in their patterns or anything like that. It's not like Space Firebird, which is a much better game. They kind of do loops, and there's just a lot more to it. You've got like a shield in Space Firebird. This you've got nothing really. You've got this kind of damage meter down the bottom as well, which these kind of bombers later on in the game try and deplete by hitting the bottom here. But I always find just avoiding the enemy firepower the most difficult part. And like Space Firebird, you have an amount of enemies you have to destroy. I think there's 48. It's the same as Space Firebird. I think there's 50 in Space Firebird. And once you've depleted the enemies, you go on to the next level. And the the next level, there's no real difference except the spaceships are a different colour. So let's fire it up and I'll show you how it plays. 48 UFOs, there you go. Here they come, watch out. Now can you hear that? That's like the Donkey Kong sound in the background. And they look like mad. See the warp effect? See, I've died already. Stupid game. You can only have 3 bullets on the screen at one time. That's just like Space Firebird. I've got to try and get off this level, show you the next level at least. But it's quite a hard game as well. I don't find it that easy. Come on, I've got to hit them. That was good. Oh. Oh, come on. I'm rubbish. Jeez, I've got to get off this level. I don't think you get an extra life till about 7,000 points. And I think you get one every 10,000 or something, 15,000, something like that. I can't remember. Come on. Way, got 2 there. One more. Yes! Next level. Oh. I find it quite stressful, this game. Here we go, what's the difference? There's no difference at all, is there? Really? Oh, different sounds. Woo! But God, is it so boring. There's a game I like playing, a really old shoot 'em up called Juno First, and it looks a bit like this. On first glances, if you was to freeze the screens, you'd be mistaken for thinking this was Juno First, because it's kind of got those grid lines and that sort of 3D effect, but I think Juno First does it 10 million times better. You can see why it was a flop though, can't you? I mean, it's just that these blue things you get, which are starting to bomb the damage meter now. But yeah, so when this came out in Japan, it was quite a big hit in Japan, but obviously it took so long to get to America. By the time it got there, kids had moved on to better games. So they were forced to come up with a much better game. And that's when sort of Donkey Kong came on. Miyamoto got his act together and made one of the best games ever made. Well, I never thought I'd get to level 3. I've got an extra life. That must have been at 7,000. I imagine a cockpit version would be quite cool. You know, if it had the kind of stereo sound, well, I wouldn't have had stereo sound, but it would have been quite eerie. It would have given you that quite an eerie space effect, which all kids back in the day, in the 70s, loved all that. Oh, we've got some bombers there. Can't believe how good I am doing this. The first time I've ever got in this game. It's just very repetitive. Oh, see, my damage meter's going down quite a lot. I've really got to destroy these blue things before they damage. I guess I must lose a life. That damage meter gets down to 0. See, it's changing colour. really hard to get. Oh, 14,000, not a bad score. Come on, let's get off this level. Nice, all on this side. Oh, come on. Come on, guys. Yes. Yes, one more. Yes, he's done it. I can't believe I've done that. This is a good game for me. Is this a world record? I don't know. I don't know what the world record is. Probably in the millions. Yeah, so I'd love to play the version with the speech. And just see what was going on there. Come on, roll. I think what always annoys me is that you can only have 3 bullets on the screen at one time. It does make you a little bit more strategic in how you play the game. No, like Gallagher, you just keep firing away, Juno first. Oh, that is an awesome score for me. It's probably rubbish compared to you guys, I don't know. Okay, so I've got into it a little bit more. Maybe I'm giving it not enough credit, but no, it's not their best game, and you can see why. You know, they've just done so many great games, Nintendo, and so many great games before this as well. You know, it's funny. This is the sort of game that they released in America, and it happened to be a major flop. The first game they released, because I don't think the other ones made it over there. Like Sheriff and stuff like that, it was licensed to Exidy, who released it as Bandido, but this was sort of like the first Nintendo game they put over there, and it was a flop. So they must have panicked, and you know, got all these other kits, Donkey Kong kits over there very quickly. It was 6 months, not quickly enough, but you know what I mean. It was must have been quite stressful times for Nintendo. Anyway, that's it, guys. That's the Radarscope. I don't know whether I'll be keeping the boards or the kit or whatever, but I know the Donkey Kong Jr. hack on my Radarscope PCB is up for sale. If anyone wants it, just drop me a line. You can get me on my Facebook page, Ninty Arcade, or just drop me a line on here on YouTube. Right, guys, that's it. I'll see you back down the games room. Right, guys, welcome back. What did you think of Radarscope then? Any good? I don't know. I guess I got a little bit more out of it in that game. Got a little bit further than I've ever done before. Level 4. It was quite good to get that far, but I still feel that there's a lot missing from that game. I think the main element is the risk-reward element. There isn't one. You know, Juno first, you've got that little planet that you go after, and if you shoot it, you get a little man. If you chase after the man, and you get the man, if you shoot the ships in a certain amount of time, you get a bonus. So that's something to go for, you know. In this, there isn't anything at all. It just doesn't do anything for me. The sounds are quite bland. I guess the graphics, that kind of 3D effect they're trying to get, the perspective, to give it that depth with the lines, the grid, is okay. But I mean, when you look at Juno First, I don't know how old Juno First is. I think it's not that old, maybe a year later. But I guess in video game terms, that's quite a long time. You know, it just looks so much better, plays so much better, and that whole only three bullets on the screen at one time, I find that hard. You know, when you play games like Gallagher and Juno First, so much quicker and smoother. I don't know. Yeah, I can see why it didn't do well. I mean, there's some. I like the artwork to it. I like the flyers. I mean, they are just copying Star Wars at the end of the day. You know, they're just jumping on that bandwagon. But, you know, they took a gamble, they got it wrong, but they put it right with Donkey Kong. So anyway, I've set a little something up for you just to see what it would have looked like, because I've got the kit. I showed you the kit earlier. I've set it up in my Donkey Kong machine, so you can see what it would have looked like. So I've put the marquee in, the bezel, and the control panel. So if I just bring the camera around, you can see. So what do you think of that? It actually looks really cool, don't you think? I like the blue. Looks really nice. And you can imagine that in a red cabinet, it would have looked really cool. So basically they made 3,000 of these, 2,000 of them got converted to Donkey Kong, and the other 1,000 either got smashed up or went into collectors' hands. And if you've got a red Donkey Kong, you know it was an old Radarscope cabinet. And this bezel here, they used on Space Firebird, the upright. I know I went on the other video about the Radarscope being in like a different shape. It was kind of like a straighter cabinet, but it must have been a really early one. I've only seen a couple of pictures of that. So maybe that was the 5 board set Radarscope that was in the kind of the Space Firebird shape cabinet. But normally it would have been in this cabinet here, which is with the normal curves like Donkey Kong. Okay, so let's try and pan round. I'll try and pan round without losing it too much. There you go, you can see it in the lineup of other Nintendo cabs. I mean, that would have been a rare sight back in the day, because these other cabs came 2 or 3 years later. So I doubt in the day you would have seen a Radarscope in a lineup like that. It would have been extremely rare, because of course most of them would have been smashed up or converted to Donkey Kong. But it's nice to see, isn't it, in a nice Nintendo lineup like that, next to Sheriff and Popeye, Donkey Kong Jr. Isn't that cool? You can see I've got Donkey Kong in the background playing away. And I'll get the PCBs fixed, and when I do, we'll do a proper gameplay on the original PCB. Maybe it's better on that. So there you go, guys, that's Radarscope. I'll just show you the control panel. As you can see, the control panel. It's cool, isn't it? It's nice to see. Anyway, that's it really, guys. That's Radarscope. So, that's it really for this video. On the next video I want to show you some Nintendo Red Tent and Versus games, because I've just received today a really rare daughter board which can house a certain number, about 8 games or so, on one board. So I'm going to show you that. I haven't shown you the Red Tent yet. I still haven't shown you Sheriff. I will get round to it. So check out the next video. If you want to leave comments, leave them on my YouTube channel, or you can go to Nintendo Arcade, which is my Facebook page. Leave comments there, and you can see more pictures of more rare and wonderful arcade machines from other collections, which is really cool. So check that out, guys. Thanks for watching.